The Wookiees are undoubtedly Star Wars' most iconic non-human species. Their powerful bowcasters are also pretty iconic, as they stand out among Star Wars weapons for their unique crossbow-like appearance. The Wookiees had many unique weapons, a product of both their long history of craftsmanship and of their physique, which allowed them to use larger and more powerful weapons than most of the species could handle. Many were made with materials unique to Kashyyyk, and many more had special cultural significance. We'll be discussing all of these weapons today as we take a look at the Wookiee arsenal.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The Wookiees were born hunters, a consequence of having evolved in the dangerous forests of Kashyyyk. For as long as they could remember, they had to defend themselves from C'tans, Kinrath, Wyshok, and worse, especially when they ventured down into the Shadowlands, the darkest depths of the kilometers-high Roshir forests. Many of their weapons, even in the modern era, were based on designs that Wookiees had used since their earliest days, and virtually all Wookiee weapons incorporated Roshir wood, Kashai vines, or other organic materials from Kashyyyk. Bladed weapons were a favourite of many Wookiees, as swords and spears had been their best defense against C'tans for tens of thousands of years. Many Wookiee villages had their own unique style of sword, and some designs were tied to local legends handed down from the days before the first outsiders came to Kashyyyk. Examples of this include the Kashyyyk Spirit Blade, katana-like swords of which little is known, and the blade of Nienthi Oris, an unusual one-handed sword design produced exclusively by the Wookiees of Keratumba village. The most well-known variety of Wookiee melee weapon was the Reich Blade, which Wookiees used as much as, if not more, than their famed bowcasters. To Wookiees, Reich blades were the defining symbol of their culture, such that some Wookiees would kill outsiders for using Reich blades without having earned the right to do so. Every Reich blade was unique and seen as an extension of the wielder, as they were usually handcrafted by the wielder. Most were broad-bladed, curved short swords, typically resembling elegant machetes, though the Reich Karathor variant was more unique, with the blades mounted at a 90-degree angle to the hilt. Reich blades were usually bulky and could weigh up to 15 kilograms, but Wookiees could still display considerable grace and agility while using them, with some, like the Mad Wookiee Hanha, using 2 at a time. Another popular Wookiee sword variant was the Wookiee Warblade, a large, bulky double-bladed sword. Like Reich blades, these bulky weapons could be used to cut through foliage as well as kill prey, and were quite effective in the latter role as well. Warblades were so large that they stood on the line between swords and pole arms, the latter of which many Wookiees also favoured. On the battlefield, many Wookiee warriors wielded heart lances, powerful vibro lances that were too large for most species to use properly, while others used blade sticks, a sort of battle staff with large blades on other ends. For extreme close quarters combat, some Wookiees used the Knuckles of C'tan, a weapon made of C'tan claws that were essentially used as brass knuckles. One unique Wookiee melee weapon merits special mention: Bukka's ceremonial blade, a vibro sword that Bukka, chieftain of Wookraro, had built out of the wreckage of the first spaceship to crash on Kashyyyk. This mighty sword symbolized the chieftains of Wookraro, but it was broken by an arrogant Wookiee chieftain who dared challenge a Terrantitech in the Shadowlands and snapped off the blade in the beast's hide. All the Wookiees had was the blade's hilt until the Jedi Civil War, when Revan recovered the blade and the two halves of the sword were made one again. The return of the blade inspired the Wookiees to revolt against the slavers of Zerka Corporation, and Bukka's sword remained a symbol of Wookraro and resistance to slavery for millennia to come. But though Reich blades and other melee weapons were the most important weapons in the Wookiees' eyes, the weapon most outsiders associated Wookiees with was the iconic bowcaster. Much like Reich blades, these crossbow-looking weapons were each unique, and many were handcrafted by their owners. Though a few bowcasters were just large, stylized blaster rifles, Most fired solid rounds called quarrels, which were slung forward by Theischwein bowstrings and accelerated by magnetic fields generated by a pair of polarizing orbs set on either side of the weapon's bow. Usually, these quarrels were explosive and enveloped in green-colored plasma, which made them considerably more powerful than blaster bolts. Some bowcasters skipped this step and just fired explosive or solid quarrels, while others were designed to fire multiple quarrels at once. The capacity of bowcaster magazines varied depending on design. Some could carry as few as 6 quarrels, while others could carry as much as 35 in a single magazine. Bowcasters were incredibly powerful, but their effectiveness was somewhat limited by their 30-meter optimal range. They also required considerable strength just to use, as they were typically very heavy and required Wookiee strength just to cock back. However, in the hands of the Wookiees or members of comparably strong species, they were one of the most devastating handheld ranged weapons in the galaxy, able to blast gaping holes in the chests of Trandoshan slavers and stormtroopers alike. Bowcasters weren't the Wookiees' only ranged weapons, however. They made many kinds of blasters and slug throwers, often large and made of bronzium or rhoshir wood. Some Wookiees used blaster pistols or primitive slug throwers as sidearms, and during the Clone Wars, many Wookiee warriors favored blaster or disruptor rifles over more traditional weapons for open warfare. Especially noteworthy were the UR-G8 blaster pistol, meant for close quarters combat, the X1 carbine, kind of disruptor rifle used by the Wookiees of Kachiro, and the Kashyyyk long gun, a heavy and extremely powerful rifle that fired slugs cocooned in green plasma, which were about as powerful as bowcaster shots and could pierce through armor plating as well as flesh. Long guns and X1 carbines were used alongside bowcasters by the Wookiees defending Kachiro during the Battle of Kashyyyk, and they all proved highly effective against the Confederacy's battle droids. The Wookiees also made some pretty gnarly heavy weapons and artillery pieces as well, which made many of their more common equivalents look puny in comparison. An excellent example of this was the Wookiee guided rocket launcher, an exceptionally powerful weapon that was nearly twice the size of an adult human. Designed by the master weaponsmiths of Kachiro, these monsters could carry 5 guided rockets at a time, which were powerful enough to be able to blow away droidekas with one shot and pierce the armor of homing spider droids. The Wookiees of Kachiro also made stationary turrets that were almost absurdly powerful, capable of turning marauding Trandoshans into green mist. One of the most prominent Wookiee turret types was the quad-rail turret, which featured 4 laser cannons or light rocket launchers, which could be fired in rapid succession. These turrets could maintain a constant barrage of rockets or laser cannon fire, and one Wookiee manning one of these bad boys could shred an entire company of advancing infantry. Even more powerful were the fearsome dual missile turrets, which were positioned across the upper levels of Kachiro for aerial defense. These absolute monsters fired 2 high explosive armor-piercing missiles at a time, and though their rate of fire was slower than that of the quad-rail turret, they could still maintain steady streams of rockets. These turrets were so powerful that, during the early stages of the Battle of Kashyyyk, just 4 of them were all it took to destroy an entire Rikusent-class light destroyer. These were the peak of Wookiee weapons engineering, and not even capital ships were safe from their fury if they descended low enough into Kashyyyk's atmosphere. As a final note, the Wookiee-owned Apazana Engineering Works produced 2 unique vehicles for the defense of Kashyyyk cities: the Radonasp Fluttercraft and the OVL Jet Catamaran. The former was a 2-seated ornithopter meant for reconnaissance, armed with only a single rear-facing laser cannon, while the latter was a fishing craft that was converted into a light gunship and equipped with missile launchers and repeating blasters. Both of these unique vehicles were made of rhoshir wood, and despite their light weaponry, they played major roles in the Battle of Kashyyyk. So that's our look at the Wookiee arsenal. But what do you think? What's your favourite Wookiee weapon? For us, it's gonna have to be the Reich Blade, though a lot of these other weapons are pretty damn cool as well. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.